Waiting to see my signal up that we are live and running over on the YouTubers. And 3, 2, 1, we should be good to go. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? The stream is now going. If you were watching this on the replay, we're doing this stream right now on Wednesday the 10th at 11:18 a.m. East Coast time. We're starting it up. So if you're tuning in later the next morning, maybe before this event starts, throughout the week, whatever it might be, if you're tuning in later today, I'm going to be going live for about 40 to 45 minutes. Going to let some people file in here. And really, it's going to be Q&A based. What's going on, Papa Gamer? Q&A based for the Charles Schwab Classic, the Colonial. Very excited for it. The Closing Thoughts podcast, very much focusing on the YouTube side of things is what we're going to be doing for analysis Q&A right now. The closing thoughts that went up on Wednesday, the podcast on Patreon, very much closing thoughts on my opinions, on ownership, all those types of things. What's going on? I see people hopping in. Wes, all them. What's up, everybody? So yeah, Patreon, everything's up there. Projections just got uploaded for the golfers, rankings, the data sheets, and the closing thoughts podcast. I'll update anything if anything changes major in just ownership that'll impact my rankings and projections, but check all that out if you're watching the replay or not. And also, I do have the link finally to pre-sale of the Supreme Draft Guide, which I can maybe throw into the chat. I haven't really put it up anywhere. I'm not planning to put it up anywhere for a couple of days, but maybe I'll do it as just a little special bonus early offer for some of the people in the chat of this one. So gonna wait for people to hop in, similar to what we did for the Millie Maker for the MMA on Saturday. For that event, it was the same exact day, but since this one's starting at 7 a.m., I don't think anybody's gonna join in on a 5 a.m. live stream tomorrow. So figured I'd do this now, let it breathe a little bit throughout the day and overnight. So feel free to answer, bring up any questions, anything that you want to ask me, any this or that's in terms of this golfer, that golfer, lineup construction, whatever you might be going with there. I feel pretty good, a good grasp on this slate as I've done about like 3 or 4 different shows on it, and feel really good about it. Have not placed any other bets since my Monday bets. I usually don't do that. I thought I might place a little bit more this week since obviously golf's finally back. But, I kind of like the numbers that I got. I'm still on the fence about Bryson right now, but I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on a bet specifically on Bryson. Probably just end up getting exposure to him via the DraftKings side of things. So people are filtering in. We'll give it a couple more minutes. We've only been up live for a minute now, but I see people in the chat right now hopping in. Feel free to hop into the chat, whether you're on mobile, whether you're on your computer. This is going to be pretty much based on your interaction. I'm just going to be posting a tweet right now to Twitter and get this thing going. Let me just grab this link. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this event, as you can probably tell and should know at this point. This is something that we've been waiting for 11 weeks now. Mr. Vetri, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. Hope everybody's doing well out there. It's very nice. People hopping into the stream. I see you. I just want to get right now the link on this opposite screen of mine so I can post it on Twitter. Bang, bang. And bang, bang. There we go. Beautiful. Live now. That's all you got to do. So I think that the way that I'm approaching this right now, and I'll start the conversation off, I'm doing FanDuel, have over $4,000 left. Yeah, if you're building one lineup, have as much money as you want. Don't actively go out there trying to leave $4,000, but I don't think it's a terrible idea. You just got to build the lineup that you like. If you're trying to win first place, the Millie Maker on DraftKings at least, or the first place prize on FanDuel, you're going to have to leave money on the table or build a very unique lineup of a couple of guys who pop off at 2 to 5% ownership, right? There's going to be golfers that are 20 or more % owned. I don't think you necessarily fade all of them, but I do think there's merit to fading a good amount of them, or at least picking your spots with where you're rostering them. Rory and Jon Rahm and Bryson, and honestly, those top 4 golfers, they're probably going to be 4 of the top 8 owned golfers, and I would assume that Rory and Jon Rahm are 2 of the highest, if not the 2 highest owned golfers by the time it kicks off tomorrow. They are very similar price range. Now, Rory's obviously in his own price range of that $11,800, but I would just be picking one of those guys. I personally have Rory projected for more points, but he's more expensive. I personally like going to Jon Rahm there when I am building lineups, what I've been seeing so far in some of the optimizers. But just in general, I probably not going to get much of the 10K range. I do like Bryson, but I'm kind of getting away from it a little bit right now when I'm building lineups. So that is where I'm at right now. The way that I'm starting a lot of my lineups is the 9K range. So Rory, Jon Rahm, I'm not getting to a lot of JT, and then Bryson. I have pieces of them. I have the most right now of Bryson, but that's mainly a price thing. The 9K range is what I like a lot. You can make a case for every single player, I think, in the 9K range. And it's crazy that the guy that I like the least might be Brooks, and he's the 3rd-ranked golfer in the world, right? Has 3 months to kind of heal any injury concerns he might have had. I see some people hopping into the chat right now. Perfect. Yeah, so we'll be live right now, probably for 45 minutes, probably go until a little bit after noon, if not right around noon, depending on the interaction. Get all that stuff in. Evan, what's going on? He says 3 lineups, 2 have Homa and 100% Morikawa and Woodland. Riding your train, big day. That's risky to have 2 with Homa. Like I like Homa, but I'm not going. I mean, I know you only have 3 lineups, so naturally, if you have like 1 of him, you're still gonna have above the field. But like I like Homa, but I'm gonna have like 5% Homa, maybe 10%. He's going to come in at like 4 or 5% owned, so I'll be at or slightly above the field, but he's not a guy that I feel like, damn, I need to get Homa into, in your case, 2/3 of your lineups is just literally 2 out of 3, so it's not like 66 lineups out of 100 or whatever it is, but yeah, I do like Max Homa, but that's just, there's not much behind that in terms of like liking him to the extent of unloading a clip on him. He's just a guy that at his current ownership of 5% owned, in that range where a couple of other guys like Kevin Na, like Kisner, guys who have won before in the last 2 to 3 years, and last year Na, the defending champ. Like, yeah, that's a guy that is going to be lesser owned next to some course history guys. Even Harris English has had success here in the past, and really every time he's played here for the most part. Benny Ann's in that range, Billy Horschel. So Homa's kind of the forgotten man, even though his recent form is arguably the best out of all these guys. So yeah, I like Homa in that regard, but nowhere near the amount of like he's an overwhelming ownership guy for me. Like I'll have a good amount of him. I'll likely be slightly above the field, but he won't even make like my top 10 exposures. But yeah, Morikawa at 100%. That's fine. Like, as of right now, the industry numbers that I'm seeing at ownership is sort of like a consensus of a bunch of different sites I look at. Morikawa is coming in nowhere near as highly owned as I thought. Now he's picking up ownership. He's not under-owned. He's not low-owned. Well, he could be arguably under-owned. He's not low-owned, but he is at best average. Like on some of the sites that are like projecting him for higher ownership, even there he's just like average ownership. I thought he was going to be more. Now his price tag is more expensive than, I think it's the second most expensive we've seen it so far this year. But even with that, like I think the course sets up great for him. He's the number 1 approach player in this entire field. I like approach. Now I want to rely on short game more than I usually would, and that's his big issue. So that's the concern. Like if his approach play, if his ball striking is not as sharp as it has been, he can't fall back on the putter like some other guys can. So that is the concern for him. But I like him a lot. Would you go Lanto and Carlos to get 4 8.5 plus guys? Yeah, I mean, if you're playing one lineup, probably not. I like Lanto a lot. Lanto is a guy that will probably crack the top 10 in my exposure, maybe even the top 5. I probably wouldn't play them both in one lineup, but I'm sure I have a few of lineups with the both of them in it. I'm going to have a good deal of Lanto, especially if he's only going to come in at like 5% owned, somewhere around there. I'll probably have like 15 to 20% Lanto, maybe closer to 15. I don't know yet. I get crunches in between the two. And then I'm going to have Ortiz in maybe like 3 or 4% of my lineup, so I'm sure they'll kind of intertwine. But if I'm building one lineup, that's probably not the way that I go. Honestly, like if you wanted to go to another cheapie with Lanto, I wouldn't go to Ortiz. You're kind of building similar players there with like birdie or better upside, which is all fine. But I would try and find, like, who is somebody else I really like in this range? Putnam's in that range. There's really not much. Like it falls off of a complete cliff. Like Matt Wallace, Vaughn Taylor, Ortiz, that range right there is pretty decent. Now, ownership doesn't matter for these guys. They're not going to be owned. Like pretty much everybody below 7K is just going to have no ownership following them. Like you're looking at most maybe like Victor Perez pops off for like 6% ownership just because people see the world ranked. They kind of maybe recognize a name from some other tours. Harold Varner is similar in that regard. Usually picks up like 5% ownership. But yeah, right now Ortiz stands out. But even I'm trying to see the low 7K range. Somebody who is picking up ownership that I actually like is, I think it's Hadwin, 7,300. No, Answer at 7,300 is picking up ownership, who I actually like, but he is a little bit more expensive than some of those names that you were saying by a few $100s, so it might mess up what you're doing. Have you have a cut line for them like -5? What do you mean, Chris? The cut line you think is going to be -5? No shot. no shot at all. The cut line for this event, it's going to be, I mean, normally the cut line, it depends on the course. It depends on the conditions as well, but you're going to see a cut line around like +2, +1 to +2 on average. -5 is going to be like the leader, potentially. What's up? What's going on, Kevin? How you doing? Thoughts on Patrick Reed pivot? Patrick Reed's going to be highly owned, so I don't really want to pivot to Patrick Reed. If anything, you're pivoting off of Patrick Reed, so kind of surprising to me that Patrick Reed is going to be highly owned. Well, I guess not shocking, but surprising at least compared to what I was thinking. I thought that Reed sandwiched in between him, who's popular, Morikawa, who's less popular than I thought he would be. I thought Patrick Reed would be the forgotten guy, especially when you have Ricky and DJ, guys that just the casuals who are coming in are going to click. Like when Jordan Spieth is going to be 15% owned this week in like big tournaments or somewhere around there, and potentially even higher once all the casual money really comes in like today, like he might push. The last time I saw he was like between 12 and 15% on most sites, but if he's going to push like 20% ownership once a bunch of casuals come in, or even if he stays at 15%, that's just wrong in my opinion. Like, yes, he has the course history here last year, but I think I texted some friends, somebody else like Like Jonas Blitz finished 5th here last year, so I don't really care too much that Jordan Spieth finished 8th. I'm pretty sure like Russell Knox was up there as like a top 8 finish. Rory Sabatini, Sabs finished 6th here last year, so like I'm not expecting those guys to do anything like that again. Thoughts on Patrick Reed pivot? So yeah, the thoughts on Patrick Reed, I like him. Like I like Patrick Reed. This range right here is very good. It's also going to probably be popular in Sunjay M, at least how it's trending right now. Patrick Reed and Morikawa. I like these 3 golfers a lot for this specific event. And yeah, I mean, I just like the 9K range. Like these 3 golfers and Xander stand out. I know Webb is going to be highly owned. It just seems like a lot of people are talking about him just content-wise, and it seems like that's following through in the content in the ownership. And I can't say anything bad about Webb. I'm just going to be likely below the field on him just because he's going to have that higher ownership. Like if I come in with 10% Webb, and that's like what I saw in some of my first crunches, I usually feel good with that. But if he's going to be like 20% owned, well, I'm clearly below the field by a decent amount. Did you really kill a bear with a banana? I have no idea what that's in reference to. That could be maybe some sort of dream that you are having, but a bear with a banana is not something I've done, at least recently. When you create 20 lineups, how many core players would you have, and what kind of percentage would you play them? Yeah, I mean, 20 lineups I keep tight. If you're playing 20 maxes, I'll keep like a tight core, but I'm not going to, like, I know a lot of people like to have cut and dry rules. Some people do build like a 5 or 6 person core and they build around that. I think that's fine. That's very do or die, and I kind of build do or die in 20 maxes anyways, but I really don't go out there with an idea of like I'm locking this guy into 50% of my lineups. I just build a core of like 20 golfers that I feel good about for that week and I feel strongly about, and that's either because of ownership. The exact same reason I would be liking those same guys, like my highly ranked golfers that are on Patreon. Again, if you're watching right now live or on the replay, Patreon down below, tons of stuff is up. The projections, the rankings, all these sheets, my closing thoughts podcast talking about ownership pivots, all the guys that I'm currently going to, and like things like that. So like my top 20 ranked golfers, maybe depending on the contest size, how many people entries are in at the 20 max. I change a couple different things in the rankings, but I just take those 20 guys and I run through projections. Now, it might not work as well if like a lot of those guys that are up there are very expensive and I don't have as much value. So that's where I tweak it a little bit, but I don't build like a tight core. It's different by the week at that point. So depending on what the value looks like, depending on like how high my highest rated guys are, is my highest owned guy going to be 70% this week? Am I locking in somebody? Am I going 40%? It all depends on the week. I don't have a cut and dry rule. So like, I don't have a core for golf. I guess my core is those 20 golfers, and maybe like 3 or 4 of them each week pop off to being in 30% of my lineups, 20% of my lineups, but there's no like specific cut and dry rule. Like I want to lock one guy and then get 2 guys at 50% in those 20 lineups. It's always different. It could honestly be like 16 golfers some weeks. It could be 22, somewhere around there. Somebody says, gosh, I love this man. My man Miguel right now is in the chat asking me how I had killing bears with bananas. We be trying to talk about golf right now, and this man be talking about my past. I don't get it. Love my cash team. First week back. Willing to take a little more risk. Last golfer for DK Cash. Cauley, CH3, RCB, or your favorite 6,900 and below. Lanto Griffin, if you're talking 6,900 and below, would be my favorite of those guys. Dustin Johnson or Bryson. If price doesn't matter for you, it's going to be Bryson by a decent clip. But like if you're building a lineup right now, I prefer Bryson over Dustin Johnson, but I also prefer Xander over Bryson. And that's not to say anything negative about Bryson. They're probably going to come in at similar ownerships. It's just a matter of how I want to build my lineups. If you don't care about money, if you're unique elsewhere, like there's so many questions. It's not just like 1v1. Like if your lineup is already chalky, probably go DJ there. DJ might come in at like 8%. Maybe Bryson's like double the ownership, something like that, right? That's at least what looks like it's trending to be, maybe a little bit closer. But if you also are going to spend all of your money by playing Bryson at that point, well, it's very hard to get a unique lineup where you spend $50,000 unless you're just have 2 like 6K guys who pop off into the top 10 or something like that, right? It's just a lot more difficult. I would try and leave some money on the table. I actually prefer Xander to Dustin, and then I even prefer all the cheaper 9K guys to Dustin, but it's your choice at that point. Awesome, thank you, no problem. Homa in one lineup and now Answer in another lineup. My homie Homa is less important now. Evan's really funny. I like Homa. But yeah, I think that makes a little bit more sense, having him in like 1 out of the 3 lineups. Because look, here's the deal. His like last 6 rounds, his last 6 contests before break, he was one of the hottest golfers, like quietly one of the hottest golfers. Like he had a very bad performance and still finished top 25. He had multiple top 10s, like I think 3 or 4 top 15s as I'm looking at it right now. he was one of the hottest golfers. But if you look at his profile, just anything longer than that, it's not going to look good. So when you try and like do a course fit or even course history here, Homa's not going to look good. So you're very much waiting, if you like Homa, what you saw out of those 6 weeks prior to this 3-month layoff. Now he's been playing golf. He literally has a podcast and he talks about how he's playing golf like all the time out there. So I at least know that he's been his recent form has been good and he's been playing. But again, it's all up in the air. So like, I don't want to get too high on Homa because there has been this 3-month layoff. And if you're on a heater, that's probably the last thing that you want to do in terms of getting your mindset right. You just probably feel pretty good about it. I'm pairing Dustin and Rookie to start off and following it up with Day and Usti. If you ain't first, you're last. Am I crazy? I mean, I don't think there's any lineups that are crazy unless you're just playing like a bunch of garbage 7 and 6K golfers that a lot of people probably don't know about. But I'm not going those 4 guys. Like those 4 guys are all of the contrarian options in my opinion. Ricky, Dustin, Louis, and Day are all the contrarian options. I actually like Day and Dustin the most out of those names. I'm pretty neutral on Ricky. I don't really have a strong stance on any of them. I like Day. I don't like Louis. So all 4 of them combined is asking for something to go wrong, in my opinion. Ricky seemed like he was getting it to turn around. I think at the API, he actually looked pretty decent. He gained in all of like the major strokes gained categories. But every one of these golfers has had issues with their games currently. Jason Day, you can look at Jason Day's numbers like at the AT&T. He has had a top 5 finish in, I think, 4 of the last 5 years. And like the one year that he didn't, he finished 11th. He's just been absolutely killing it there. But outside of that, he's just been a very meh to bad golfer for the price point. Now that this is a deeper field, Day's not like 9K flat. He's at that lower 8K range. So I'm actually fine with Day. I have a good amount of him. A good amount means like he's 5% on, 6% on. I'm probably coming in around that. But all 4 of them in one lineup is, you're building the extreme risk lineup there. I don't think you need to take all extreme risks. Like if you have 2 of those golfers in your lineup, you're probably going to build a unique lineup, especially if you don't spend all the salary. If you have all 4 of them, yeah, it's probably going to be the only one like that, but that doesn't always mean it's an optimal lineup. Just because you have the only lineup of its kind, I can build an only lineup. I can build 150 lineups that I know for a fact they're probably not going to be duplicated, but they're probably also, a lot of them, going to be pretty crappy. So those 4 golfers in one lineup, I think it's too contrarian, to be honest with you, just because there hasn't been a lot of promise before the break. But if your narrative is just pretty much, I think everybody's on a clean refresh, and then you're just going off of pedigree, well then, yeah, pedigree in your lineup of DJ, Day, Ricky Fowler, and Louis, some pretty good pedigree if that's like all you're going off of. A lot of top 30 golfers in that lineup. Cash lineup and risk in the same sentence doesn't sound right. Yeah, that is true. Honestly, I've never made a cash lineup for golf. I probably never will. I am somebody who does play cash in NFL and NBA, although I'm lowering my cash exposure as cash games are getting harder to win. Not because I'm getting worse, but because the field is getting much sharper. Everybody has some sort of subscription package. So if everybody literally knows the same values every day, it starts to get more optimal to play just GPPs. But for golf, it doesn't even matter. Like golf is all about ownership when it comes down to it. It's such a variant sport that like we're trying, like people significantly weigh course history. I weigh course history. I believe in it, but I weigh it like 5% for some guys, and some guys I weigh at 0% depending on the specific course. You can't tell me that Jason Day is finishing at the AT&T 5 years in a row, top 11 or better, and 4 of those he's finished top 5, right? You can't tell me that he doesn't have a feel for that course. So yeah, him at the AT&T is going to be a higher weight on my model. But for the most part, like when you're relying on those types of factors as like your key stats, and I know strokes gain, all that stuff is key stats, birdie or better, recent form, but ownership's going to be the biggest piece of it, and you don't get to leverage that in cash games. So I'd rather play just GPPs. And now there is something to be said that like we know, if you've been plugged in, that Bryson's been trending in a great direction. Personally, I know that Xander, and I'm sure many people do, that Xander's been playing good. It's just been like one little thing each week, and literally like 1 or 2 holes each week, that instead of him finishing top 15 and top 10, he's finishing like T20, T23. Like Xander's game has been clicking. It's usually one thing each week, and it's usually the putter. Max Homa, he's been trending in the right direction. Like these are things, if you're plugged in, you know, so you have an advantage in that regard when it comes to cash. But it's not like the NBA when you know those players are going to consistently do it. A 1 week happens, and now they're on a 5 to 6 week spiral downturn instead of their upturn for one little thing that happens. And a 3-month layoff is the exact reason why I don't want to be playing cash, even though I really never do. Brooks Koepka thoughts. Yeah, he's like the one guy in the 9K range that I don't really have any excitement for. I like before the break, 3 months, he was dealing with an injury, and I thought Brooks was interesting because he was like a 28-1 in the outright betting market. He was like 9,200. He was something very cheap, like ridiculously cheap. And now I just don't know if I want to do it. Like, yeah, he's had the course history, second here 2 years ago, but he seems like the guy who, and I think he said it, like he's just not touching clubs. Like he hasn't been touching clubs. He's doing promotions, and that's about it. So not somebody that I really want to be touching. Also, if you're still watching right now, which I see there's like 66 people, please do. Hit the like button. smash the big subscribe button. I can't put it up on the screen like I usually do in some videos lately because can't edit this. But yeah, I like the interaction. This is fun. I see some more questions piling in, so be sure to keep getting the questions out there. I'm gonna keep answering the questions. We'll go. I know Mayo's going on at 12:30 live. I know some other people who are going live, so I'll respect the boundaries of the YouTube interwebs. But I figured this was a good time to go on. So I thought either now or like 5:30, more people out of work. But at that point, the video is gonna last for like what, 8-9 hours. People sleeping, so literally like 2 or 3 hours of watch time afterwards. Like Peter Uihlein as a cheap option, am I crazy? I mean, if you're, whatever your narrative is for playing these guys, it's totally up to you. He's like fine around the green, but I think that's going to be the most variant returning. Like if you haven't been practicing, around the green is probably going to be the biggest thorn in your side. That and like sand save percentage, pretty terrible off the tee. That doesn't matter. Pretty terrible of a ball striker. That does matter here. And then based on his price point, he's just like a very meh approach player. He's probably an above average putter. So yeah, if you're banking on the fact that you just need a cheap guy below 6,500 who doesn't do a lot right but is pretty good in the short game, then yeah, I think you can go there. You can also say the exact same thing for Denny McCarthy, but he is the extreme of that play because he's the number one strokes game putting player in this field at 6,400, but he is atrocious pretty much every single other place. Like he'll rank 33rd, I think, right? Yeah, 33rd overall in strokes gained total right now, but that's because he's first in putting, but he's so bad everywhere else. Not a good ball striker, terrible off the tee, terrible tee to green, terrible approach. I don't have any stances on the guys below 6,500. I don't really like any of them. I'm not getting to a lot of them. Now, there's always going to be like a guy who's 6,500 and finishes like 8th, and that's fine. Who do I think it's going to be? I have no clue. You know just as much as I do at that point. Like, I can pick out names that have maybe some sort of like skill set that matters here, but that skill set is nothing fantastic. Like Andrew Landry, 6,400 up top. I actually think he's a decent golfer. Hasn't made a cut here yet, but I think he's a decent golfer. Chasen Hadley at least has approach play, at least above average in this field in that regard. So those are some guys. Zhang, I know a lot of people are going to want to play Zhang. Honestly, not a terrible option down here. But yeah, these guys are all just, they're not trash because there's actually real good golfers. Sepp Strop is all the way down at 6,200. Sepp Strop is the definition of a guy who will miss the cut 6 times in a row and then finish like T14. If you're interested in rolling that dice, just know that 10% of the time or 90% of the time it won't work out for you. 10% of the time it will. But yeah, Sepp Straka does have talent. He just never puts it together. And lately he's been very bad. But he's good ball striking. He's good approach. He's good at the things that you want. Tee to green. Sepp Strapa is down here at 6,200. I might have to look a little bit more into Sepp Strapa. But, I mean, the issue with Sepp Strapa is he's going to miss the cut 90% of the time. Well, let's just say he misses the cut like 75% of the time or blows up. And the issue with Sepp Strapa also is like he could be three strokes within the cut line with like 2 holes to play and he'll blow up and you'll ruin your entire weekend. That's the type of golfer, at least the experiences I've had. Building a single entry in a high dollar contest. Who's the first guy I plug in? Not named Xander. Single entry in a high dollar contest. I mean, Morikawa is probably going to be more popular owned than the higher stake stuff. How high? Like $100, $200 buy-in? How high are you? What type of stakes are you playing? The first guy that you plug in, honestly, probably Lanto. I probably just plug in value personally. And then I see what I can build from there. Lanto's not going to be highly owned even in the high dollar stuff. Like he might touch 10%, but I even doubt that. $100 Miguel says, yeah, honestly, probably Lanto. I mean, that's my value play this week. If he doesn't make the cut, screw it. Like he's not in 100% of my lineups. He's, last time I checked, like 15%. But if you're trying to build a high stakes lineup, you know you're going to need value at some point. Figure out which value you like the most. I don't think Lanto is like this sacred cow. Like you have to be playing the guy. That's just the hill that I guess I'm going to die on this week. Like, I have Lanto at 15 or 20% owned. He's going to be my highest owned below 7K guy, but that's just because there's no good options. Like, this page of all guys below 6,400, I'm not going to be anywhere near double-digit ownership on those guys. And then there's a good amount of guys here that you can play around with. RCB, Victor Perez. You can play around with Putnam. You can play around with these guys down here. I think is a really nice range as well. And Ortiz, Juan Taylor, Matt Wallace. All these guys are going to be low owned. I don't want any Keith Mitchell, but, like, I'll probably have Vaughn Taylor, Carlos Ortiz, Matt Wallace. Maybe not as much Matt Wallace, but like those types of guys somewhere hovering around like 3 to 5% owned. But then Lanto will be the one who pops off for me. That's just the way I'm playing it right now. I like the fella. How high are you on Corey Connors? I like Corey Connors. I have an outright bet on him at 150 to 1. Corey Connors is the poor man's, and not even poor man's, just factoring in the DraftKings pricing, so like cheaper, literally poor. Not like in real life he's worse than this player, although he might be. Corey Connors is just Benny Ann, and he's going to be half the ownership. Benny Ann's not that popular, it seems, which is surprising. Benny Ann will still probably be above double digits in ownership percentage, like 12%, maybe 10%. But Corey Conners will be like 5%. And Corey Conners' game is very similar to Benny Ann, if not better in some regards. Like Benny Ann is definitely more elite when it comes to just tee to green play, definitely more elite when it comes to around the green play, which is shocking because once he gets on the green, he is terrible. But Corey Conners, I do have a 150-1 outright on him. I do have a decent amount in DraftKings, but I'm not going to bet the house like 25-30% of a guy who I know what he does and how bad he does it. Corey Conners ranks 145th in this field in putting. That's not going to work for me. That's just not. Around the green, 133rd. But he's 6th overall when it comes to ball striking his irons. He's top 15 in tee to green. Like, he's a good golfer. It's just everything will work great. He'll get you there. It'll look like he's setting up for potentially a birdie opportunity, and he'll finish with bogey. It looks like he might have an eagle opportunity, and he'll finish with bogey, right? The guy's just terrible. He falls apart. He's very similar to Griot. He's very similar to Benny Ann. Honestly, Colin Morikawa, except Colin Morikawa is on elite other levels when it comes to the other areas, but like when it comes to the putter, Xander as of late, but nowhere near long-term as bad. Just like that putter is the issue. But if you catch that 1 out of maybe 8, maybe 6 like times that his putter is like gaining strokes, which is probably like 1 out of 10 times, or just losing only 1. Yeah, Corey Conners at 7,100. You need him to make the cut and then push a little bit higher. And we know he has win upside. He has had success here. So, yeah, I like Corey Conners. EVR in the exact same price range. I like him as well. A little bit different in terms of his struggles overall. Like, he struggles with the ball striking, but he's fine with the putter. I mean, relative to Corey Conners, he's like twice as good, I think, exactly to the number. So EVR in that range. McDowell, it has been windy here the last couple of years, so that's like the stereotypical guy, but I'd rather go to Conners and EVR. Woodland or Finau? Straight up one lineup. I'll go Woodland. David Welsh says, ultimate props to you, my dude. Ultimate props to you as well, sir. Appreciate you. Does anybody... So I'm going to be releasing on Monday my Supreme, is the title of it, Supreme Draft Guide for NFL. Monkey Knife Fight's going to sponsor it. It's going to be $10. They launched a landing page. I have the link. I could send it out right now. Is anybody interested in checking that out? The actual site will not be up until Monday, so if you do like go through and sign up for the $10 that it is, you won't actually be able to access it till Monday. But this is a special offer, so I'm going to release it on Monday. But if anybody wants to at least check it out, the landing page does look very, very nice. The people over there at Monkey Knife Fight put in some good work to get some opinions on the landing page, even if you don't want to actually go through with the purchase just yet or ever. I mean, it's totally your decision. It's your money. Going with all guys course history, Spieth, the all course history team, 1 spot left. So he's trying to burn. I mean, if you're going with the all course history team, you should. I mean, what is your requirements? They have to win here, or have had to finish at least T2? Because you're going to get guys like Kevin Na, a win in 4th. Like, Na, is he in your list of guys there? Na is in there. Spieth, Na, Kuchar, Palmer, Finau. He's got the whole course history team. I mean, Kevin Kisner's had 2 top 5 finishes and a win here. Who else had course history here? I mean, John Rahm, but you can't probably fit him into that lineup. I was going to say John Rahm has had course history here. He's just never come through. So is Webb Simpson. Yeah, look at the course history. So he's making, I like that, the course history only team. Trying to prove all the doubters wrong. Ryan Palmer, 2 top 6s here. Roy Sabatini, he's had 2 top 10s here and 3 top 20s. Yikes. Spieth has really been struggling lately. I faded him. Lately? You think Spieth has been struggling? Like, last year, Spieth, I think in the summer, he came along. I think he had like 3 top 15s at one point in a row. But if you take that out, literally since 2017, when the guy was lights out from 2015 to 2017, like literally lights out unconscious, and his putter's still unconscious, but this man has been, struggling for a year. Outside of the AT&T, where he's had decent course history just in general, Pro-Am, obviously we know things that he's won there. He was okay there, but he's been bad. And there's good narratives, like the course history, and he's had 3 months off, and there's going to be no fans here, so the mental part of it's not as strong when that many more people are watching you. I mean, there's narratives for him, but there's also like the fact that he just is still broken and has not had. And like, here's the end of the day for Spieth. He's $8,000, so he doesn't have to win the tournament for you. But if you're betting on a guy outright, or if you're just hoping that this guy produces for you like a top 10 finish, there's no fans there, so this helps. But you can practice all you want the last 3 months on these golf courses with your caddy, whatever it is, and try and work on everything that's wrong, which is everything but the short game right now. Off the tee to green, ball. Like, you can try and work on all that stuff. But what happens on Sunday when you're making a charge and the pressure's on and your mental state just goes to absolute crap? Because that's what we've seen every time. We've seen Spieth leading after 2 rounds at big events, at majors, over the last 2 years, and really last year and a half. And it seems like it just falls apart on Saturday and Sunday when the pressure's on. I can't bet on that. Like I literally, that's why you love Tiger. That's why people love betting Tiger, and obviously they still do because he's the top of it. But that's why you like betting guys like Rory. Like they can take the pressure. They can be floating around the entire weekend as on top of the leaderboard. Go to bed 3 nights in a row as the leader, and it doesn't affect them. Other guys it does, and it seems like that's what's happening with Spieth right now. That's going to be his final hurdle, and I don't think he's getting over that if he's not even getting his actual physical game and performance in the right spot. Morning, first time for DFS Golf. Appreciate you all. What's going on, Strammy? What's up, man? Welcome. We've been live for about 30 minutes. I'm going to go for another 10 to 15 minutes maybe, as long as there's still interaction. Some very good interaction right now. We got like 75 people in here. Smash the like button. Pound the subscribe button. Do all those things for me right now. I appreciate all that. Patreon down below. Projections, rankings, the models. The final podcast went up on Patreon for this event, talking a lot of ownership, talking my specific plays and things like that, where I'm higher, where I'm lower, all that down below, as well as like a bunch of other sports. MMA, whatever else. Billy Ho, Bob Streak. Yeah, like I think Billy Ho's okay. No strong stance. I think he's fine. I think he'll probably pick up a good amount of ownership, like more so than other guys in that range. But I think Billy Horschel's fine. He's been playing very, very well lately. Got the short game rocking. Will Rose be a good low-owned player? Is his ownership too? I think Justin Rose will be low-owned. Yeah. Guy who's been maybe getting his game back together. There's a narrative. I mean, he's won here. That's one. There's a narrative that he's changing his gear and just his clubs and his sponsor and all that. But he's just around guys who are going to be highly owned. Leishman always picks up ownership. Finau always picks up ownership. Gary Woodland will pick up his fair share. Morikawa, Reed, and Im are going to pick up ownership. And Justin Rose is just kind of the odd man out of that range. Are you fading anybody above 10K completely? Yeah, I'm probably not going to have any Justin Thomas, and I have to decide if I want to just fully fade Rory or not. Like, my point projection on Rory is very good, and that probably doesn't shock anybody, and I like it a lot. And when I crunch, I get a good amount of him, but I might just fade him to get different. Like, he's going to be the highest owned golfer, and if he's not, it's going to be him or Jon Rahm. So, like, I don't want 20-something% of my lineups to have Jon Rahm, and then another 20-something% to have Rory, and the whole field has both of them. So if one of them shockingly misses the cut, and after 3 months, would it shock you that much? Or one of them performs badly, I got to sit there and be like, at least I didn't, like, right? I still got 20% of that guy. So I got to decide if I want to just go all in on Rahm or Rory. Value-wise, point per dollar-wise, I think Rahm right now grades out better for me. Let me check my projections over here. Yeah, so Jon Rahm grades out better point per dollar-wise, and actually projection-wise, he's pretty close. So Rahm, I'm going to have Rahm. I'm probably going to fade JT, and I might fade Rory. I think I'll probably just fade Rory. Screw it. Like the only way Rory really, really hurts you, like crushes you, is if he wins. Maybe if he finishes second. But he's not crushing you if he finishes third, fourth, or fifth at that price tag, as long as you have the winner or the second place finisher in your lineup, or whoever he T3s or T4s with. So I'm banking and I'm hedging against him. One of the deepest fields that we've seen in the last 5 years for an event. That's a non-major event. One of the deepest fields that we've seen. I'm banking on Rory just not winning. I'm taking the field against Rory in my DK lineups is what that means if you fade him. And I feel fine doing that. There's a crazy deep field off of a layoff. And as good as Rory is, I'm fine fading him in DFS. There's 0% chance I would ever bet a 7-1 number on Rory McIlroy at this event. Such a deep field off of a 3-month layoff. He's like a 6-1 favorite in fields that are way, way less loaded with talent. And now he's 7-1. It makes no sense to me. I'm shocked anybody is in single digits in this field. I guess I'm not shocked because people still bet Rory because he's good and just don't really think that much about it. But I would not have set anybody as a below 10-1 odds favorite for this event. Who do you like out of the bunch of Berger, Kisner? Nah. Berger the most. Have Berger in one of my 3 lineups. Keep him, move down, or someone different. Move down on Bryson to Xander, then go up to Day or someone less than 8,300. Yeah, I mean, I would rather have Xander plus another. Like, I would rather have Xander and Day if you're building a GPP lineup than Bryson and Berger probably. But I like both of those. Those are both good GPP lineups. Yeah. Are you fading anybody? In 20 lineups, should I be overweight on all of my players? What do you mean? No, I mean, naturally you're going to be higher owned because you're only playing with 20 lineups. The less lineups you have, the higher ownership you're going to have to each individual player in those, of course. So I wouldn't really look at, if you're looking at ownership projections, those are typically for 150 lineup builds, right? It's looking at the entire field, of course, but like 150 lineup builds is how you should level that to. So if you're seeing a guy coming in at 20% ownership, but you're only building for 20 max, you're going to very easily approach or double that 20% because you just have less lineups to deal with. I mean, the second you start having that guy in 8 of your 20 lineups, you're well over that number, right? So you're going to naturally be more over the field in ownership in a 20 max because that ownership is meant to reflect the entire field, and it's technically meant to reflect what people are doing in 150 lineup builds. Hardest working man in DFS, salesman machine with incredible work ethic. Thank you, TCB. That is one of my good strengths, luckily, and I guess it just goes hand in hand with being young. I would say my 2 bigger strengths, though, are patience and curiosity. Take those into your next interview if there's any youngsters. I'm like fucking 23, I don't know what I'm saying, but if there's any other young people out there, or people just switching jobs, times are going crazy right now, maybe you're looking for a new job. These are like my truthful skills in terms of like, or strengths, work ethic, curiosity, and patience, but I'm sure people don't hear those often. Work ethic, they probably do. Dude, your broadcasting has gotten really solid. Congrats on your subscriber number. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. I assume that means I used to suck, which I definitely did. You could have just said you used to suck. Now you don't. But I appreciate you being respectful there because I actually was looking back like just a year ago alone at some of my streams, and like the lighting's all fucked up because I was like moving and I was in like 3 different apartments or like 3 different like staying grounds until I found the spot I wanted to move. So I was like going into closets and turning on a ring light, and it was brutal and different cameras. But I appreciate that. You say, his question, Chris's, Delgado's, I'm fully fading every golfer above 10K. Sanjay, Reed, or Morikawa. Who do you think is the lowest owned? So I think when it's all said and done, Reed might end up being the lowest owned. But as of right now, what ownership projections are showing me is that Morikawa is the lowest owned out of those 3. I would bet that it's going to be Reed, like when the actual numbers come out, if you told me to bet on one of them. But if you're going off of ownership projections, it's going to show you that Morikawa is the lowest owned. But at the same time, they're all pretty much a coin flip. Like, they're all going to come in around 15% owned, in my opinion, unless Morikawa spikes up out of nowhere. But you have to keep in mind, like, this is a milli maker. There's a lot of casual money going into the milli maker in the smaller contests because people have been waiting for sports. Not a lot of people know the name Colin Morikawa. If you haven't paid attention to golf since the last major, right? You haven't paid attention to golf since the last major, you're probably not going to know Colin Morikawa's name. You know whose name you're going to know over that? Patrick Reed's. You probably don't even know Sanjay Im's name all that much, although he's at least won, so maybe you're looking at like recent game logs. And then you probably know Brooks' name, you know Xander, you know DJ, you know Fowler, you know Justin Rose, you know Woodland. But that's why I think Morikawa is going lower owned, or at least being projected as lower owned than he probably should be, in all honesty. Like, Morikawa should be one of the highest, if not the highest owned golfer in this field, in my opinion. The price point, maybe that's a little bit overblown. Like, the price point probably drops him down a little bit, but he should be a top 5 owned golfer. I'm not even sure he'll crack the top 10 based on everybody's ownership projections right now seem to say otherwise. I've got English, Morikawa, Knob, Woodland, Finau, and Fitzpatrick. Interesting build. That's a very interesting build because you're starting your lineup with Morikawa, right? Yeah, you're starting the lineup with Morikawa in the low 9s. I don't think that's terrible, but it is really difficult for me to not think, like, from Patrick Reed all the way up to Rory, like, one of those guys is going to have a really good chance at winning, right? Like, if I'm starting my lineups, I'm fine starting in the 9K range, but I would like to have like Patrick Reed or Xander or Webb, one of those guys in my lineup if I'm fading the 10K range, if you're building like one lineup. Because to start up Morikawa is fine. I think Woodland probably has the best win upside in that lineup you just built with Woodland, Finau, Fitzpatrick. Like, Finau's always been in contention. Obviously, he has the whole narrative that he just doesn't win. One of the spots he was in contention was here last year, finished with the 2nd place. But it's really difficult for me to see all those guys above not like finishing 1st or 2nd, and usually then you'll start to need them if they're in that 9K range. Thoughts on Sabs and Leishman? I think Leishman's fine. I prefer Woodland. I might even prefer Justin Rose. And then Sabs, I'm just not really going to get much of. I know he was fine last year, but last year when he was fine here, he was playing a lot of golf. Like, Sabs last year just was not taking an event off. He was playing a lot of golf, and he was actually hitting a stride. Totally different this year golfer coming in. Outside of just a 3-month layoff, he just hasn't been the same guy, in my opinion. Has not been as hot with the putter. So Chris asks me, do you think Tway, Putnam, Vaughn Taylor, Danny Lee, Brian Harman, and Griot, do you think they make the cut? Your guess is as good as mine. I would bet a lot of money that all of those players don't make the cut. I would probably say half of those players make the cut. I would feel the most confident in Taylor, Putnam, and then toss it up between Griot and Danny Lee. Those are all guys you got to hold your breath on. Best sleepers. I mean, it's going to sound like I have like 50% of Lanto Griffin, but Lanto, like he's 5% owned and he's 6,900 and he's a guy who continuously puts up like top 30 performances below 7K and has the upside to win an event. Birdie or better machine. Sleepers, like it depends on the price ranges. You're not really going to find much sleepers at $8,000 or above. Really, 10K and above, they're all owned, right? $9,000 and above. Brooks is going to be lower owned, but he's not a sleeper in my opinion. If Morikawa is not going to be 15% or higher owned, he's a sleeper. I guess just the casual people don't know who he is. Shane Lowry is not going to have any ownership at all. Louis probably won't. Sergio probably won't. But none of those guys are really sleepers to me, honestly. I don't really want them here at their price points. Like Lowry, I don't want at 8,600. Scheffler's going to pick up some ownership. Maybe Jason Day at 8,300 is a sleeper in that range. I'll give you that. Rory/Lowry stack. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not high on Lowry. Like, I understand the fact that he's going to be like 5% owned, but just because he's low owned doesn't mean I want to play him. Just because somebody's high owned doesn't mean I want to fade them, right? It's that whole narrative. Like, you pick and choose your spots. And Lowry, for me, at 8,600, like, I'd play him at 7,600. I think he's probably, like, that much overpriced, to be honest with you. What do you think of Palmer since he's a member of the course? Advantage, especially with no fans? Yeah, all that stuff's hearsay for me. I mean, I heard him say, like, it's harder to play there when there are fans, right? He's a member. But now that there's no fans and there's no grandstands and it's not set up in that exact way as when there are fans, maybe it looks similar to him. It's all mental. I can't really weight that. I think Palmer's a fine option in that range, but he just blends into a lot of other guys, not a standout. This field is apples to oranges from last year. Yeah, especially, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, course history in general for like a 1 year sample, like looking back at last year, how somebody performed here doesn't do much for me. If you want to look back at like the last 3 or 4 years, like Jason Day and Phil Mickelson at the AT&T, right? Those types of things. If you want to look at that stuff and say like there is a very clear track record that they like this course and something just clicks with them here, then sure, wait it a little bit more. But you want to look back at 1 year of history, like last year, Spieth finishing 8th here. I honestly don't care. Like, looking at Spieth finishing second, first, and second from 2015 to 17, that was a totally different golfer. That was a top 2 to 5 golfer in the world at that time. He's outside the top 50 right now, outside the top 55. He's a totally different golfer. But the point is that was brought up was very good by TCB. There's a totally different field here right now. This is the deepest field that you'll possibly ever find in a non-major event, and we have seen in a long time. So course history from like last year's events and really in general don't really mean as much here for me. Lowry's a great win guy and he plays good in top field events. That's the thing though. Like fine. He's okay in win. We can measure that. He plays fine in top field events. Like, what does that mean? Like if he doesn't win and he finishes like top 20 in this event, which is where he's supposed to finish based on that price point, what happens if the next time we see him in 3 weeks? Are we going to say that he competes good in top 20 fields when he just didn't the week before that, or at least didn't out-compete it? Like, if you think Shane Lowry competes well in majors and you want to show me like data that he's actually doing well there, fine. But like, I don't know how we just like, we can build narratives around good golfers. I think every single golfer competes well in top field events, and then some don't. Like, and then those same guys don't, right? I think we can build narratives around like one event. Like if Shane Lowry wins one tough field event, but then finishes terrible in like 20 other ones, is he really that good? I think it's easy to like think that is the case. I don't have a data point to say like in fields, and I wish maybe there is one out there you can point me to, like fields that are like top 5 percentile or top 10 percentile in ranked players. Like World Golf Rankings would be the best way to, I would say, rank this in terms of talent in those fields, how people perform and finish. There's got to be an easy way to come up with that. Maybe that's something I'll look into. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Walker? Honestly, I don't even think I've seen one share of him pop up in my lineups. Oi. Alrighty, gang. I think I'm going to bounce in a couple of seconds, but I'll answer any last second questions. I don't think I missed any. Neiman, a good GPP play? Yeah, I mean, I think all those young guys are live at some point. Matt Wolff, Neiman, they were all pretty terrible before the break. Really just those two. But yeah, I'm not against Neiman. Like, you don't need to get much of him to have leverage. I just want to look at something. All right. So TCB says Lowry, yeah, the top field's in the Open. Yeah, I mean, so Lowry wins the Open, right? He wins the Open, but he misses the cut at the Open the year before. So, I mean, you could be good, but he misses the cut at the Open the 2 years before that. So, like, one event does not change my narrative on a guy being, like, good against other elite golfers. I think Lowry's a good golfer, but I don't think like he is far above other good golfers at being good against fields that have good golfers in it. He's missed the cut the 3 opens before the one that he made it, which we know the 4 opens before the one that he won it. I can keep going back. Ryan Palmer, Reed, nah, Rory, fuck the world, says David. Go get it. Go get it. Go get yourself some money. For sure, TCB. Yeah, I like the feedback. That actually got me thinking. Maybe some sort of tool that I could make and or reach out to others about. Because I like that. It might exist. Like taking golfers and see which ones thrive the best. And my assumption, without even looking at it, would be the top golfers, right? These guys up here, Rory, Rahm, JT, Bryson. But like, who are the ones that stand out a little bit more? Like, if there was evidence in a way that showed me this guy in Lowry does much better than other guys in his range, then Finau, then Kuchar, then Scheffler, then Day, right? Against these loaded fields, then I would be like, yeah, I want Lowry a little bit more. So having that information would actually be useful, but I'm like everybody who tells me that, I'm not sure they actually have it. I think they're just basing it off of him winning the Open, but then don't care to mention that he missed the cut the last 4 years before that. But that's something that I'll look into. It's probably really easy. It's probably just taking an average of the world rankings. You just have to have those golfers' world rankings at the time. You obviously can't use the updated versions because it would look like Jordan Spieth was fantastic in all those events, and that's not true. What's good, Sal? Any interest in Munoz? I always have some interest in Munoz, but he's not like standing out for me. Like he'll be like 5% owned, and maybe I'll have like him in like a couple of lineups. Pressure test would be cool. Yeah, like weekend play. Like they have finals. They have like final round averages. I think they might even have weekend scoring averages on stats databases. You didn't mention him in your last video. I'm not even going to try and say his name. I know who he is. But I read his price range doesn't fit his skill. No, I would disagree with that. Who, Jazz? You're talking about Jazz? Yeah, so the price range doesn't fit his skill is going to be something that people will say. But, so he's down here, right? He's the 40th ranked golfer in the world. If you're looking at that, fine. But he's not playing on the PGA Tour each and every week. It's the same exact reason why Victor Perez is 6,900, right? Or what is he? Yeah, 6,900, and people are going to say he's too cheap. Every time Victor Perez plays in a PGA Tour event, he's just not good. Like, he's just not. Like, he has yet to really flash insane upside. Like, let me pull up Victor Perez's recent logs. So I know you're asking about Jazz, but it's the exact same point. Like, these guys don't play on the PGA Tour every week. If they played on the PGA Tour every week, that's probably where their price point should be. If you want to take the bet on it, though, and just say, like, he's cheap, he's ranked higher, he should be higher than this. But, like, we see Victor Perez, he only shows up at WGC events. And he did fine at the WGC, I think, like, last November, like, almost, like, 9 months ago. I think he finished top 5, but he never shows up on the PGA Tour. So we don't really have He's just going up against far less superior talent, and so is Jazz. So they get ranked higher in the world, which is kind of crappy and a kind of dumb way to do it, in my opinion. So if you want to believe that this rank is actually true and that he wouldn't actually be ranked like 90th if he played on the PGA Tour, then you go ahead and play him. I personally don't believe that this 40th rank actually means he's the 40th best player in the world. I would go out on a limb and say if Jazz played on the PGA Tour every single weekend, that he would be ranked below a lot of guys, including a lot of these young studs who are not ranked as highly as him, but probably should be ranked higher than him in, let's just pull them out. Like, he's ranked higher than Benny Ann. I don't think so. He's ranked way, way higher than Neiman and Wolf. I think he's pretty close to those guys. Woodland wins it all. Convince me not. I got a lot of Woodland, so I hope so. I got a Woodland ticket, the outright 50-1. I got Woodland in a ton of my lineups. He's probably going to be like a top 5 owned guy for me. I can't wait. Any opinion on Fantasy National having Rory projected to be lesser owned than 6 other golfers? No, I mean, I don't. I mean, I look at like 5 different ownership projections, and I just take sort of like a consensus of all those when I build my lineups, or at least I attempt to, depending on how often they update. I do think Rory will be popular. Less owned than 6 other guys. I mean, which number are you looking at? Fantasy National does like the actual sites numbers, which I would assume that the actual sites numbers would be maybe less ownership on Rory than the actual public. Maybe not, though. I really don't know where everybody stands. I stand that he's really expensive, and you choose between him and Jon Rahm this week if you're going to go up there. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to be somewhere around 20% owned, which is high ownership. Like, if they have him as the 6th most owned golfer, but the 5 guys above him are like a half a percentage above him, he's pretty much the most owned golfer. What is your opinion on Wolf? I'm probably not going to play him. I like him, but there's just so many other options. I like Wolf. I like Neiman more at the exact same price point. I like Billy Horschel. Like the exact same price point, I like Neiman, Horschel, and Benny Ann more than I like Matthew Wolf. And Abraham Manser for $100 less. All right, gang. I think I'm done. The projections are up. I will update the projections if anything changes throughout the day. I'll keep looking at ownership to update the rankings. I only have one player. One player is an A-graded golfer for this tournament for GPPs for me. And even he might drop if his ownership comes up. But a lot of B-pluses in that range. Be sure to check it out all over on Patreon, as well as getting MMA, the rest of the esports. Cannot wait for preseason NFL. A bunch of stuff's coming out. I'm going to pop into the chat right now. Something that people will not see. Move this over. People will not see until Monday, but you specifically, just in this chat, even if people are watching on the replay, I don't think they'll be able to have access. Maybe they will. But the landing page for the Supreme Draft Guide, my DFS Draft Guide, or not DFS, my Fantasy Football Draft Guide for 2020, the landing page is ready. If you want to just let me know, you can actually go through with the offer. You won't get access to it until Monday because it doesn't release till Monday. But I'm not even asking. I'm not trying to tell you guys to buy it. Let me know what this page looks like. Reach out to me on Twitter or let me know in the chat right now. I just dropped it into chat. If you can go to that page and just let me know what you think about it, you don't have to go through with the offer. You can watch the video. You can see if you want to. It's for Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It'll be releasing on Monday, the website for my draft guide, and that'll be the landing page. But let me know what you think of it. Does it look good? Anything stand out terribly? My eyes have been on it. My developers, some other guys. I just want to see what the public thinks. Good luck, everybody. Who is your A? Says no fear. You can tune into Patreon. Link down below to see all my rankings. That was a teaser. That was a teaser that I write an article and then don't show you. I blow out the rest and say, sign up for the website to get full access. I need monies. If I don't have monies, I can't keep the Wi-Fi going and the light shining on my face. All right, it's 12:08. I'm pretty sure Mayo's starting in like 20 minutes. I'm going to get off his airwaves, give him time. Looks great, looks good. Okay, you guys think it looks good? No fear. Don't fear doing a little dab. He wants to know who the A is. There's a hint on my Twitter if you look at the post I made for it yesterday. Appreciate the info. No problem, everybody. I'm excited for this. It starts up tomorrow. I'm probably not going to do any showdown content, but I'll be in the Discord, all that stuff, answering questions. Appreciate you all. Peace out, gang. You can check out that Monkey Knife Fight thing for the draft guide. You can check out some of the offers down below for drafters, for Super Draft, for Monkey Knife Fight. Sign up for all of them. Get extra free money. It gives me money. You get free money. We all gamble. We have a great time because golf is back. Homa or nah, give me Homa. Peace out, gang. On that note, shout out, Max Homa. Peace.